Welcome to another week of Sarazanmai, episode 8 of the Kunihiko Ikuhara show that makes less and less sense and somehow more and more sense every week as we go along. Last week marked a pretty significant departure from what we were seeing the past couple of weeks, with what I think is the first arc of the show coming to a close, somewhere around the halfway point of the show, and we're moving on to the second part of the show, where I think we're going to focus more on the things behind the other parts of the show that we haven't really heard that much about. That majority being the actual reason why there's only one Kappa left, the Kappa Prince, what's up with the Kawa Uso Taikoku, the Otter Kingdom, just more and more puns. So many puns, you don't even know what to do with all the puns that they tell you. As well as emotional character development and just all these kind of twists that you don't really expect. So last episode, we saw a romance between the policeman, which we had been seeing the whole time. And we kind of learned that one of the policemen, the dark-haired one, is some kind of mechanical, reanimated automaton type thing. And he, in being brought back this way, he's kind of against the expectations of his partner policeman, who had wanted him to come back as the person he once was, and now refuses to accept that this is the same person that he once loved and once was his partner. There's just a whole bunch of stuff. So without further ado, let's just get into the episode, because without that, we'll be here forever. Also, can someone explain to me why they keep saying seaweed every time there's a flashback? Is that a pun on the word, Japanese word for seaweed? And why is that the Japanese word for seaweed that they use? What pun are they trying to make with flashback and seaweed? I have no idea. Also, I forgot to mention that last week, at the very end, we saw that Enta was the one who had been messing up their soccer place. And the name of last week's episode, I think, was I Want to Connect, but I Want to Betray. And we talked a little bit about how he feels jealous and how he wants to keep Kazuki to himself. Let's see what happens this episode. We're starting with Kuji this episode. So let's see what happens with him. Because remember, his brother just got, booked for a thing and he's going to jail. So let's see what happens. Or not going to jail, he got booked, so he's trying to flee and take Kuji with him. Pretty sick reveal that we got right there. So the misanga that Kazuki has been wearing this whole time was actually from Kuji in the first place. And it's interesting that they pick soccer as the sport with which to build these connections around, because soccer is like a heavily team-dependent sport, and it really relies on you like having your teammates back at any and all times. And that seems to be what they're showing in the show, is that Enta just wants to be a golden combi with Kazuki, and he just wants to be a duo and do their best and win and just try together. He also may have a romantic crush on him, which is pretty much 100% Rotten Tomatoes certified fresh. But we don't know exactly how that's going to play out, because they haven't really gone into that in a few episodes since the first post-credit scene where they made out. And Kuji also seems to be into the soccer thing. Last episode, Enta asked him, like, have you played before? It seems like you're really good. So now we're learning a little bit more about Kuji's past. And it seems he was playing soccer, but he had to give it up, like many of the other things that he gave up, because of his brother and the way that their family is, and just the unasked for condition that his life just transformed into for no particular reason. And it seems that Kazuki inherited this like need to connect and want to play soccer to connect with other people, or they gave up soccer at the same time because they felt that connections were more important, but they didn't realize that they were already connected even when they no longer were, as Kuji just said. Good job, show. Although I always say that I skip the OP. The OP in this show is actually really good, and I like it, and the animation is good, as always. If a certain anime YouTuber was around, maybe we could have gotten an episode of what made this OP really special. But hey, he doesn't do that anymore. But yeah, great OP, and I should probably listen to it more than I do. And I just took the chance to listen to 20 seconds of it this time. Great OP. Literally YOLO. He literally just said YOLO to this little kid. Okay, and Enta somehow transformed into like a pachinko playing lollipop eater? Because I think he was eating a lollipop when he trashed the whole place too. I don't know why this whole lollipop thing has transformed him. Let's find out, I guess. Just want to point out they're playing like this noir-y jazz soundtrack in the back, which I think really fits with the character of Kuji's older brother. And also we seem to have deviated completely from whatever formula we had before, because usually Azuma Sara-san would say like, this is the lucky item of the day, and then we'd see like some scene involving the revolution from the previous episode, which we kind of did with Enta like going on about why is it all his fault, but we're kind of off script here, and I kind of like it. So I saw in a comment somewhere on a video about Sarazanmai that it seems to be that Kazuki's arc is the one that's done, because now he's made reparations with his little brother, and he's come to terms with his birth mother and all that, and we're moving on to something completely different, and that's why things have changed, and why the Sarazanmai, that episode before the last one, didn't work out. We're kind of going in a different direction now, and I'd be interested to see what character we dig more into now. It seems to be Kuji, who's definitely an interesting character, because we know that he's really conflicted about the actions that he had to carry out as a youth in order to protect his brother, and the things his brother had to do in order to protect him and keep him, you know, in a home that wasn't completely broken after their parents both died. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with him. We haven't really heard that much about Kuji's brother as a character. We know kind of in passing what he did or what actions he took in the past and what ramifications those actions have had, but we haven't really learned that much about him as a character, and this looks like the start of something along those lines, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that. So Enta, please ask more questions. In the vein of connections, now that Enta has found out that Kuji has been connected to Kazuki since before he was connected to Kazuki, or around the same time, is it now, like, is his thinking now that, oh, they were connected before and it's my connection that's, you know, like the newcomer, or is it like we're all connected and I shouldn't have behaved that way? That feels like the revelation that's coming. I mean, it's probably a bad idea to behave that way in any sense, just because there's no reason to act like a dick because your friend has a new friend or whatever. But it feels like Enta's having some kind of revelation here. It's interesting to see that when Kazuki's not the focal point character, when we're moving around the other characters, it seems like the narrative is more like kind of dispersed. We're not following one continuous storyline. We're kind of picking up pieces of information from different sources. Whereas if it was Kazuki, it will either be Kazuki or Haruka telling us what's happening at all times. So I'm interested to see what happens with that too. Now, the pun for his name, Chikai, whatever his first name is, I'm assuming that's the pun for this episode. I don't really know, because she didn't tell us out and out that it is the pun. But based off of the previous people who have been made into Kappa Zombies names, like Nioi no Fukuro is the one that I remember right off the top of my head. I'm assuming that if he does get made into a Kappa Zombie, well, one, that would be tragic for Kuji, that if that should happen at all, and two, we're gonna have a heck of a time figuring out what that pun is, because off the top of my head, I have no idea. So let me know what his name means in the comments. So let's keep going. Okay, couple things right off the bat. First of all, Kuji's brother literally just kicked a kid in front of him to take a sword stabbing, and so he could just walk away and be fine with that. Second, these police people just shot a dude in broad daylight in Japan. That shit doesn't fly. Two, or number three, this fucking police dude has an otter above his heart, right? Right? He has an otter above his heart. So when they make the Kappa Zombie stuff, they're basically controlling or like perverting the person's original desire or love. A lot of information this episode we're getting. Kind of curious to see what happens. Who becomes a Kappa Zombie in the first place? These policemen clearly are not the original policemen. That's what the show's telling us by showing these other policemen to us. I'm curious to see like whether there will be actually some confrontation between the otter policemen and the policemen who actually work for the state, even though their uniforms are exactly the same. This whole Kappa Zombie thing is still unclear to me as to what or how they make them, because they keep saying like prime Kappa Zombie material. Like, what is their goal when they're making these Kappa Zombies? I'd be interested to see that as well. I think they're going to show us how they make a Kappa Zombie this episode. And if they do show us that, I'm really looking forward to what they show us, because We don't really know much about the Kappa zombies other than that they come into the world and the boys do Sarazanmai on them. We don't really know how they spawn or what happens after they, go away. Are they still dead? The boxes that fly around, they return to where they came from. But what does that represent? We don't know. Oh my god, it's just more and more questions, just like I had last episode. But this is, this is Kunihiko Ikahara. You expect this, but my brain is really reeling trying to make sense of all the stuff we're being told right now. But with the timing of this show, I can't help but also think that this level of cover-up after a very public, in broad daylight shooting of a, albeit kind of harmful person, I can't help but think that they're trying to comment somewhat on what's been happening lately around the world with police shootings. I don't really want to go into that, but it seems like they are trying to say something about that. Now, this show is not like overtly political, but it does seem to have some kind of like message that it wants to convey. What with Enta kissing Kazuki and homosexuality not being the most accepted thing in Japan, as well as like the whole aspect of Kuji's brother being a criminal, but also being a person who acts out of good intention. It seems like they're bringing together both these sides, and in this case, it's like the policemen were acting out of good intention when they went to question the other policemen, but their intentions were turned against them because of the power of the Kawauso. Like it's a cover-up. Is it a lie? To some extent, it's like opposites reside within everything. I don't want to go too much about this. It's just a small note that I wanted to make because clearly there's like it's a 2-minute scene about somebody shooting somebody in broad daylight, and there are policemen on both sides, and they come to an agreement that it was some criminal who shot them instead of the police. I just thought that was interesting. Oh god, this was very horrible timing. I guess there's not going to be any frog dance this episode because the Kappa Prince can't turn them into Kappa this time. That seems very convenient that she just kicked him directly into the thing. Are we assuming that Azumasara is working with the otters? No, I'm not assuming that. Am I suggesting that it could be possible? Yes, it seems to be the case because she's now going to do her live broadcast and going to leave the Kappa Prince frozen. Could it just be like a mistake? Yes, it also could be that. Okay, let's see. One punch! Okay, back to the show. Those trademark fat globule tears. Oh my god, this is great. So, people realized when they were connected. People realized they were connected when they no longer are. It's just another way of saying you don't know how good you have it till it's gone. He realized that, they were... I think inside Kuji's kind of like a little bit sore that Kazuki doesn't remember that they had this interaction, and that's what sparked him to go back to soccer, it seems. Or started him on the path to soccer, it seems. I'm glad to see they're all connected. It seemed to me when they were on that phone call that Kuji also wished that Kazuki had remembered him and their connection that they had, and maybe he also likes Kazuki. Are we having like a love triangle here with middle school boys? Maybe we could be. They can't turn into Kappa now. I don't know what they're going to do. The policemen are still looking for his brother. They have 4 out of 5 dishes. They're not going to get a 5th one until they turn into Kappa and convert another Kappa zombie into a Shiriko Dama, and the Kappa Prince swallows it. Are we on another 2-episode arc here? Maybe. Okay, keep on crying, Kazuki. Holy fuck. Also, playing to the obvious here, but he just basically broke up with Enta. And we've been told over and over this episode, people realized they were connected when they no longer are. Stay tuned for the reunion. It's happening soon. Holy fuck. Make note of the episode name. I want to connect, but we'll never meet again. That doesn't look good for Enta. Okay, now to the post credits. Interesting. Okay, so this episode, obviously there was a giant twist at the end. The whole episode was about dealing with connections once you're no longer connected, which seems like an oxymoron because you would assume that once you're no longer connected, there's no need to deal with the connections. But apparently, people are connected even when they no longer are connected, which makes perfect sense in the world of Sarazanmai. Enta, last episode, got really jealous, started eating lollipops, got high off of that sugar, went and did something that he probably regrets, and immediately went around trying to fix it. He went around trying to help Toi, like, meet up with his brother and get out of there as soon as they possibly could. Ran into some police people. And in the process of trying to repair his connections, ultimately he did, because the police followed him from wherever he was at to the meeting he had with Kazuki, and then he ended up getting shot. These police people are clearly just completely okay with just killing people in broad daylight. But we get a sense of how out of the ordinary that actually is when we see the response to it. Like the other policemen in their first shooting, they saw the dead guy and they were like, this doesn't pass as self-defense. You're going to have to explain your actions here. And again, with Enta, the whole city is like up in arms, like, hey, there's shots fired, get somebody out there, someone might be hurt. It's interesting to see that, Kazuki was like so mad at Enta for like 5 seconds and then he gets shot immediately after. It's not like Kazuki's not been, distant with Enta before, but this is the first time he's actually been angry at him without even giving him a chance to like explain what he was feeling at the time when he did the things that he did. Kazuki obviously is completely destroyed. His life seems to be like insanely difficult to deal with because first he was, he had his whole thing with his brother and his birth mother. And now there's this thing with his friend. Not to mention that he got outed for being a cross-dressing idol person. His life is just insanely hard. This episode, remember what last episode when I said we're at the beginning of this dark arc when things are just going to get really nasty? I feel like I was right when I said that because look at what happened this episode. Kuji, is leaving the city with his brother. At the end of the episode, it looks like he has left the city because they show us this building that's not in this city. I forget what it's called. It's like the Tokyo TV Tower or the Sky Tree or something. And then Enta gets shot, and then the dishes of hope are gone, and the Kappa Prince is frozen. This is like the low point of Act 2 before things get better. Now, do I expect things to get better? Yes. But this show does have a way of subverting expectations that isn't really normal. I don't really know where they're going to go from here, given that now we're at this low point. The only way we can go is up. But when they froze the Kappa Prince, it means that we can only solve the problems through normal human interaction. We can't, we can no longer rely on Sarazanmai and the Kappa forms and anything like that. We now are stuck in the human world. We just have to make do. No Kappa Zombie this episode. The formula is completely gone. We got 5 episodes of good introductory character building formulaic show. And the formula was amazing. I loved it. A lot of music. No music in this episode as well. Even in the last one, we still got the policeman dance. This time we didn't even get that. Just 2 gunshots. A lot of death. A lot of violence. A lot of just negative emotion. I want to connect, but we'll never meet again. Based on what we were told this episode, that means you're still connected. Because even after you're no longer connected, you're still connected, according to the show. Interesting. We're on episode 8, and we're already at the lowest point that we're going to get to. Things we don't know. How policemen turn people into Kappa zombies. What Azuma Sara has to do with this, because she's like very familiar with the Kappa Prince, and she's revealed in the past that she can transform into a Kappa at will. Or whatever the prince is, not like what the boys look like when they transform. She turns into a little white and pink thing. We don't really know what the whole goal of the Otter Kingdom is because they seem to already have a lot more power than they did in the past. Is there a goal to get even more power? Is it to take over the world? Is it to remove all desire and leave only love, quote unquote? This like false binary that they've constructed. We don't really know what their goal is. But they seem to be progressing towards it because they're removing all the obstacles that stood in their path. Not to mention, last but not least, Azuma Sara just conveniently kicked the Kappa Prince into the frozen thing. It seemed a little jilted even when she kicked him because she didn't even spill her noodles when she did. Interesting to see that. The show is going I mean, the pacing is amazing with the show. We consistently get more and more information every single episode, so there's really a lot to talk about every single time. I may have ranted a little bit this episode because I was kind of thrown off by the direction the show is going in. I'm interested to see what will happen next. I don't really know what will happen. It's a good thing for a show because they end every episode with some kind of plot twist or cliffhanger. The episode title leads me to believe that we're not going to see Enta again. Maybe we'll see him as like a Kappa zombie or something. A Kappa, some like afterlife creature. Maybe when they infiltrate the outer headquarters or something. And Toei's gone too, so it's just Kazuki by himself. If this episode doesn't get you down, I don't know what does. I don't really want to go on for much longer than this because I feel like I'll be ranting more and more with no definite conclusions. We'll just wait for next episode to see what happens. So that's it for this week. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next episode.